Look closely at the modern world. America is drowning in debt. The entirety of Europe is suffocating under it. Corporations are leveraged, students are broke, families are struggling. Even the wealthiest billionaires on the planet carry billions in liabilities. And yet, almost no one stops to ask the fundamental question: if everyone is in debt, who gets the money? Think about it. If you owe money to a local bank, the dynamic seems simple. The bank collects from you. But what happens when governments owe trillions of dollars? Who collects then? If every single nation is deeply in the red, who is rich enough to be the lender? At first glance, it defies all logic. It's as if the entire planet has somehow gone broke simultaneously. But here is the twist. The modern financial system is far more deceptive than it appears. Because debt is not just a transaction between two parties. Debt is a colossal web. An invisible matrix connecting governments, megabanks, corporations, hedge funds, pension systems, and everyday citizens. And deep within this matrix lies a bizarre paradox. The people carrying the debt are often the very people who own it. It sounds absurd, but let's break it down. Imagine your retirement account. Every month, a fraction of your paycheck vanishes. That capital flows into investment funds, pension systems, financial institutions. And what do these massive institutions do with your money? They purchase government bonds. In other words, they lend it right back to the state. Suddenly, the picture flips. While the government becomes the debtor, you, without even realizing it, become the creditor. To put it simply, governments are often in debt to their own citizens, not directly, but through the labyrinth of the global financial machine. And this isn't unique to governments. Corporations play the exact same game. The world's largest empires of commerce carry billions in debt. Yet these companies aren't on the brink of bankruptcy. Quite the opposite. They are hyper-profitable. So, why do they borrow? Because in the modern era, debt is not a sign of weakness. It is a weapon. It is leverage. A corporation borrows to build gigafactories, to pioneer new technologies, to acquire its rivals, to achieve monopoly. In this paradigm, debt is fuel. The issue isn't the existence of debt. The issue is when the debt begins to outpace the capacity to generate real wealth. History is haunted by this exact cycle. The Roman Empire began cannibalizing its future stability just to maintain its present luxury. The Ottoman Empire leveraged its future to artificially sustain an influence it could no longer naturally support. The British Empire carried a crushing financial burden just to keep its global dominance afloat. And for a very long time, everything seemed normal. Markets stayed open. Streets were crowded. Institutions functioned. Because that is the ultimate danger of debt. It acts as an illusion, masking structural rot for decades. At its core, debt is a time machine. It pulls the future into the present. You consume tomorrow's resources today. And initially, it feels magnificent. Economies expand, prosperity surges, living standards skyrocket, people live larger. But beneath the surface, tomorrow is being systematically liquidated, and eventually, the bill arrives. This is the inescapable loop of history, because debt isn't just economics, it's psychology. Debt isn't about currency, it's about trust. As long as people believe tomorrow will be better, the engine runs. As long as investors trust the future, the capital flows. As long as citizens believe in the institutions, the illusion persists. But the moment trust fractures, everything shatters. Banks retreat, investors panic, governments scramble, and the cracks in a system that once seemed invincible begin to tear wide open. This is precisely how Rome collapsed, how the Ottomans withered, how Britain receded. None of them fell overnight. It was a slow, agonizing decay spanning decades, because the collapse of civilization is a slow burn, and by the time the smoke becomes visible, it is already too late. Which brings us to a much darker realization. The real question isn't who gets the money. The real question is, why does everyone keep borrowing? Human nature. Because humanity will always choose present luxury over future sacrifice. Immediate rewards will always outshine distant consequences. Governments spend more. Corporations crave hypergrowth. Citizens demand higher standards. And debt makes it all possible, at least for a fleeting moment. Perhaps this is history's greatest irony. The very mechanism that builds an empire is the one that destroys it. Success leads to excess. Excess leads to debt. And debt breeds vulnerability. Eventually, the structure collapses under its own massive weight. Today, global debt sits at astronomical, unprecedented highs. Nations are leveraged. Corporations are leveraged. Citizens are broke. And yet the machine keeps spinning. Just like Rome once did. Just like the Ottomans. Just like the British. The lights are still on. The markets are still trading. Life goes on. But history leaves us a haunting warning. Stability is an illusion. Because financial systems are not anchored by gold or currency. They are anchored by faith. Faith in the future. Faith in institutions. Faith that promises will be kept. And as long as that faith holds, even a mountain of debt seems manageable. But when trust evaporates, even the mightiest empires crumble. So perhaps the real question was never, if everyone is in debt, who gets the money? The real question is, can the promises this entire system is built upon actually be kept? Because if history has proven anything, it is this. Civilizations don't collapse when the money runs out. They collapse when the people lose their faith in tomorrow. And in the end, the most valuable currency on earth was never the dollar. It was never gold. It was never the pound. It has always been trust. But trust is a fragile architecture. When it fractures, it does not shatter with a loud explosion. It cracks silently in the dark beneath the surface of daily life. Today, we are standing on the precipice of a new frontier, a digital landscape where the central banks are quietly racing to automate faith. Digital currencies, programmable money, centralized ledgers. They are all attempts to rewrite the rules before the collective illusion dissolves. Because deep down, the architects of the modern machine know the mathematics. They know the mountain of debt can never be repaid. They are preparing for the grand reset. We look at the flashing green screens, the rising stock indexes, the endless cycles of consumerism, and we comfort ourselves with the lie of immortality. We assume that because our systems are complex, they are unbreakable. But history has no pity for complacency. Every hyper-leveraged empire of the past believed they were the exception to the rule. They all believed their decrees could outsmart basic arithmetic. They were all wrong. The printing presses will keep running, the debt clocks will keep spinning, until the day the music stops. And when the lights finally flicker out on this credit-fueled empire, the true value of things will be laid bare. The survivors will not be looking for paper promises, digital tokens, or fiat decrees. They will be looking for reality. Because in the grand equation of human civilization, systems will rise and fall, currencies will turn to dust, and empires will fade into myth. But the only wealth that ever truly survives the collapse is the faith we have in the promises we make to one another. The machine requires debt, but humanity requires truth.